We are really excited to be here today to share on women in architecture. Today's our official kickoff. So this is, it's an important moment, but I really can't wait till we look back on this journey and all that we will have achieved together. So I'll introduce myself briefly. Chris and I are both on the WIA Leadership Committee. We'll be sharing a few thoughts before we bring the whole leadership committee up on a panel. But Wendy Keene, longtime business architecture practitioner, thought leader, educator. I'm also a co-founder of the Business Architecture Guild and more recently author of the book Strategy to Reality. So Chris, would you mind an intro?
Of course not. I'm Chris Cooper-Bland. I'm Group Head of Architecture for Endava, who provide nearshore services to deliver business solutions. Basically, I've been an architect in various forms, names, solution, domain, enterprise, whatever you want to call it, for over 20 years across lots of organisations, a lot of them in financial services. And I just think it's the most fun job you can have in IT because you spend your life solving problems.
I love it. Awesome. Awesome. So Chris and I are going to talk about briefly, what is women in architecture? What is this all about? What's our mission? Why does it matter in the bigger picture? What do we focus on? And we have really, really big vision, but what are we focusing on now? We'll share both. And then how can you all participate in or support women in architecture if this is something of interest to you? And then we'll turn it over to Paul to lead our committee panel. So we did just want to share, this is the Women in Architecture. We also call it WIA, just to be simple, the WIA Leadership Committee. So again, you've already heard from Chris and Paul, and as you can see, just incredible leaders and humans from around the planet in architecture. But one of our common themes is going to be, we are co-creating this together with you. So with that, Chris, over to you.
Are you presenting?
Yeah. Do you not see it?
No.
No, we did lose the share, Wendy. You might have to reshare.
Yeah.
Oh, what? Hold on. Well, that's crazy. I thought we were all good.
Anyway, because I don't need the slide to start with.
That's okay.
Honest, I think one of the reasons why we started this initiative is because the lack of women in IT architecture it's remarkable, really. Is whenever you go to technical meetings or conferences or gatherings of architects, you can sort of count the number of women on the fingers of one hand usually. I've sat in client meetings where we've got like 20 architects and designers and I'm the only woman. And they look at me and say, oh, are you the project manager? No, I'm not. Oh. So, and as you can see here, there's been a recent study in the US across the industry, which says that only sort of 10% of enterprise architects roles are currently taken by women. And I think that applies across all types of architects, not just enterprise architects, of course. And really, I think there's two questions we can consider here. Is this a bad thing? And what should we do about it? Let's focus on the first question first. Is this a bad thing? Well, of course it is. For a start, we have a huge shortage of talent in IT generally, and in IT architecture in particular. And somehow we're missing out on a significant group of people, approximately 50%. And then if you consider that IT, how IT has grown over the past sort of few decades from, you know, supporting mainly sort of office-based systems that sort of process business information to the huge diversity of sort of digitally connected world we have today that touches all parts of our lives, and the new challenges that this brings really needs diverse solutions that need to come from a diverse group of people. And lastly, of course not least, we think that women themselves are losing the opportunity to have a fascinating and challenging role. So if we agree it's a problem, next slide. what can we do about it? So, I mean, there's several things we can do, of course. As individuals, when we're working with people, when we're having those discussions about the next step in sort of developers' careers, people in IT's careers, we can all individually think about what we can do to address the issue, take any opportunity to correct the imbalance, and that will help. But we think we need something more, and that's where WIA comes in, really. We want to promote this as a global initiative that's going to help women grow in their architecture roles and really push the discipline forward by having more diversity and creativity to architecture at all levels, and work to identify what are the blockers, are there blockers, what are the barriers that are in place, why aren't women following the architecture profession careers more, so that we can get a greater parity in the architecture world. Wendy, can you sort of tell us a bit more about why WIA matters?
Absolutely. And you've laid an absolutely perfect foundation, because WIA matters, well, for many reasons, but two that we'll draw out here. One, because architecture matters. As Chris has already said very well, in our digital disruptive world, I think our organizations have never needed architecture more. And so we really need every single one of us, right? We know we need more people, and we need every single one of us to be at our best, both individually and working together. So for architecture and the impact we want to make globally. And second, we are a pretty amazing community worldwide. So architecture and the architecture community can do our part to help lead change and serve as role models for others. So, worldwide, we are often working in transformational roles, strategic roles. Here we are in the context of the chief architect, sort of a event in context. And so through just our daily work and the way we show up and the things that we do, as I said, we can be role models and together a force for change to really facilitate diversity in our discipline. And we do acknowledge delightfully that there are more women that are becoming architects and moving into leadership roles, and incredibly strong contributors, and also bringing unique aspects to the discipline. So WIA and these efforts are really about formalizing, taking it to the next level with intent and commitment behind it. So a little bit about our approach. Some pretty important things here. The first is that we really look at this, as Chris said, as a global initiative. We look at this as creating a movement. And we spent a lot of time talking about what to call this. And Women in Architecture is named after the movement. It's named after the mission. It's named after the outcome that we want to create together. So that means this is about all of us. This isn't just about women or women only supporting women. Regardless of your gender, if you are an architect or an advocate for architecture or women in architecture, you play a critical part of this movement. And that's what I think is going to make this really powerful and really exciting. Just look at the leadership committee as a reflective balance of both men and women. Second, to acknowledge there are a ton of incredible efforts in organizations that already exist. Women in technology organizations, organizations themselves have diversity groups and women in technology groups. And so as WIA, part of what we think we can do is facilitate action and serve as a focal point for change. So we can catalyze efforts. We can centralize and coordinate things that are going on in partnerships. We can create a unified voice for education and advocacy. We can initiate and bring together meaningful and actionable dialogue among all of us, sort of normalize and explore these topics, and then drive action that will create the pathway, that will create the on-ramp for women in architecture, both today and in the future. The last bit of our approach, again, a continuation, but we very much recognize that we work in an ecosystem of partners. We have a lot of great stuff to learn. We're looking forward to collaborating with other organizations around awareness and advocacy, and just being able to create impact on the mission. So the next question is, what does WIA focus on? And we are really looking to support women in architecture today, to help them advance and thrive. We are also looking towards tomorrow to build that pathway, that on-ramp, as I said, for women in architecture. And we want to create new dialogue and awareness. And so some ways we're planning to do that are through the focal areas that you see here. We do have big, big, big visions, but we're also going to, start in a realistic place here that I'll keep unpacking on the next slide. But we are focused on pathway building for women in architecture, outreach, awareness. We are focused on awards and grants and special programs, perhaps targeting certain populations where we know we can bring up more women that may not be aware. Education, that's not just education and training, sort of among our community, but also how do we make sure in a broader educational and university context that these ideas are, there's awareness around them. Data gathering, so getting more pulse on what is the situation of women in architecture worldwide, and then measuring our impact together as WIA, hopefully on those outcomes, on those numbers. Content, so articles, resources, podcasts, videos, all those good things that we can learn from. Community and exchange, bringing us together, events, and also coaching and mentoring. So specifically, here are the things that right now is WIA, right? And I just have a point on the top there to emphasize. So Iasa is an organization that's already working on the architecture profession and disciplines. So WIA is focused on special concerns and complementary topics that are pertinent to women working in architecture. So WIA is not trying to take over all of architecture. It's really focused on the concerns of women in architecture, and then we partner with other professional organizations like Iasa to teach and mentor on the architecture discipline itself. So initial offerings, and at the end, we'll talk about exactly how you can get involved and go find some of these things. But we have a WIA community, which is hosted on Mighty Networks, which is a great community platform. So you can go out there now, start the dialogue, start adding events to your calendars, and start contributing. The WIA community is where we orchestrate all of our efforts and stay in touch. We also have events. We are having quarterly events. We'll have a new member onboarding and whatever other events that we're going to shape together. Our first quarterly meeting will be on 16 December. Coaching circles. So this is also one of our initial focuses. So facilitated small group coaching around specific topics. We have a few of those in mind, but we really want to hear what you all think and what would be useful to you. Mentoring, so one-on-one mentoring on women in architecture related topics. Iasa also has architecture mentoring on the discipline that's available separately, but specific WIA mentoring we are offering as well as job posting. So if you are an organization that would like to share your job posting, right now you can add it in the WIA community. And of course, if you're someone who's looking for new jobs, hopefully this will open up some new opportunities for you as well. One thing we can't stress enough and that we're really excited about is we are WIA, which means we are shaping this together. So this is initial starting point, but all of these things require your voice, your participation to bring alive, and your preferences to help us understand what is valuable and what do you need most and what do you want to contribute to.
So just to summarise really what some of the benefits of becoming a WIA member are, I think Wendy said a lot of them already, so I'll just recouch them in a slightly different way. We're really looking to focus on helping people to grow the pathway to architecture for women. And we can do that by providing access to sort of mentors and coaches who have been through what you're going through now. You know, you've had that difficult meeting with the CIO where they don't let you get a word in edgeways. How do I deal with that? You know, some of those sorts of experiences can be invaluable. We can help with sort of career guidance and professional development. We also want to offer an opportunity for people to showcase and present. You know, my first presentation, maybe a little bit of a safer space if you don't want to sort of put your head up above the wall too far. First time, maybe this is the place that you can do it and get constructive feedback if you need it. If you're already an experienced architect or coach, you can give back to people by being a mentor or by being a coach, to making sure that, you know, all the great stuff you've learned gets passed on to the next generation, so to speak. Wendy mentioned sort of job availability, you know, hearing what's out there, and also providing network, just generally networking, community and support. And there'll be sort of access to the affiliation with the WIA and their partners. From the organisation's perspective, you know, why should your company support? Maybe it'll be an investment of time, or maybe they'll pay your membership. It doesn't matter. But really, from the organisational perspective, it's going to give them sort of access to new people. It's going to help them grow their current people, you know, develop their teams, making sure that you can find new people, you can grow the people you have, and you keep the people, because they're going to be sort of satisfied and be able to sort of see where they're going and feedback as well, and get job satisfaction from that perspective. We'll also sort of give you access to various subject matter experts in the space. And again, you'll benefit from the affiliation with WIA and its partners. So some of the sort of topics that we've been thinking about working on are really, you know, making sure that we can help people grow their confidence, making sure that they're resilient, they don't feel intimidated, you know, and can perform at that level when you're dealing with difficult people, for example. Helping with recruiting and hiring, making sure that, you know, job descriptions that go out to market aren't gender bias, you know, that can put people off and are inappropriate. Making sure that as an organisation that you're aware of differences. Then maybe there's different motivational factors across the genders. Maybe you've introduced gender bias somehow, want to try and eliminate that. You know, just generally looking at the hard questions and discussing them openly so that we can actually make progress to address them. Building on WIA membership, we want to introduce sponsorship. And this is part of us really creating a truly collaborative community with the organisations that we're going to be working with. We want to work together. We need to work together. We can't do this on our own to really further the progress of women in architecture. So what we're proposing at this point is to have sort of two types of involvement for WIA sponsors. We're looking for people to work with us as what we're calling founder collaborators, and they're going to really be closely involved with the WIA programs that we're offering. You'd be doing things like providing mentors, providing coaches, making sure, you know, speaking at key events, sharing stories of your women architects so that they can act as role models, which they're few and far between, right? So we need people to actually share those, and also to support the wider community to, get the idea that women make good architects. The benefits that we see arising from that, I mean, obviously this will help your organisation image, raise your brand awareness. It will put you in touch with a group of sort of senior technical professionals and leaders, contribute to your ESG, of course. And also it should help you address if you have one, not every organisation does, but most of the ones I've spoken to have a gender disparity at senior roles. So by encouraging technically capable women to pursue architecture, they will, start to take more senior technical roles, and that will help your balance over the overall in the organisation. And of course, it will allow your teams to benefit from membership. We're proposing to have a number of sponsorship levels, and they're going to sort of typically be based on size. So whether you're a global large organisation with a turnover of over 100 billion, we're saying that would be a gold sponsorship level, annual investments at 20k. I think you can read all those. I don't need to read out all those points, but we've sort of created four levels: gold, silver and bronze. And for non-profit or academic, obviously much cheaper. What we're saying is you don't get different benefits. It's about your level of commitment because you're a large organisation. So it's not like, one of those traditional checklists where you have gold, silver, bronze across the top and lots of little dots down it. But no, it's based on the size of the organisation. And, that's going to govern the level of commitment we would expect you to be able to make. And if you're not ready to make the full founder collaboration commitment yet, we will have individual event collaborators. So when we organise a large event, we will, you will make that commitment to be present at the event, include a speaking spot, inclusion in attendee materials, of course. That will be significantly cheaper. It will still give you some good benefits. It will raise your brand awareness to a large pool of senior technical professionals, show that you're actively supporting women in architecture, give you opportunities around recruiting, of course, sales, and all the usual things you get from event sponsorship. Going forwards, we're posting that at the moment at 2k.
Excellent. So just to wrap up then, how can you get involved? How can you participate and or support WIA? We have 6 ideas for you. So the first is just engage, just become a member. And becoming a member is free. And all you need to do is head over to the Mighty Networks page that I'll share on the next slide. So join, help us shape the program, start getting involved, start coming to events and helping us form coaching circles, and maybe even sharing your knowledge as part of that. So you can also share your knowledge and expertise. So that could include being a mentor, facilitating a coaching circle, or presenting at WIA events, right? Because we'll have lots of those for you to choose from as options. You can also share your talent. So maybe you don't want to focus specifically from the architecture side, but maybe you're really good at communications or graphic design or project management. We would love to borrow your talent, so please let us know. You can also sponsor monetarily and receive the benefits and affiliation, as Chris just shared with us. You can support in whatever way makes sense to you and is congruent with your goals. So maybe you're an organization and you would like to just post jobs with WIA, or consider looking at WIA members as you are sourcing for new roles, people in new roles, or request someone from WIA to speak at an event. And then finally, partner. So maybe you're another organization, a women in tech organization, or otherwise. Let's talk and create a mutually beneficial relationship. So 6 ways there. So the Mighty Networks link is here. That's free. Again, first quarterly meeting will be 16 December, and we'll start talking in the community platform. If you're interested in sharing your knowledge or talent in the Mighty Networks, there's a volunteer survey, so you can give us a little bit more specifics. If you are interested in sponsoring, we have a specific email address for you there. And any other requests, feedback, ideas, things you want to share with us, you can just reach us at the Contact Us address. So that's it for us. Cool. Any last points you want to share, Chris? Okay, well, let me stop sharing here, and I'll turn it over to Paul for the panel.
Hey, well, I mean, it's hard to have a panel that follows, you know, such a comprehensive presentation. I feel like, you know, I couldn't be more impressed with the message and the leadership that you have both provided. I certainly am excited from an Iasa perspective about this. I have a terrible camera image. Sorry, everyone, but it is a life on the road, and that's kind of how it goes sometimes. But you know, I did want to say from the outset that while this is Iasa, kind of Iasa hosted, this is not an Iasa thing. So I know I said that once, but I really want to reiterate that we want to work with the Business Architect Guild, with, you know, the Open Group, with any organization that supports women in architecture. And so while we may host the infrastructure and those kinds of operational aspects of it, that any organization that supports women in architecture is welcome as a sponsor, as a partner, and as a leader in this. And we put that out there as a critical message. Now, I personally wanted to say why this was so important to me, and that is because I have had so many numerous encounters with brilliant architects. I can easily say that one of my mentors, who I won't name out of, you know, because I didn't ask her if I could name her, who is now a chief digital officer, it was easily one of the greatest architects I have literally ever known. And, you know, that always inspired me to realize that we're missing out on a great deal of talent. We're missing out on a great deal. There are so many aspects of architecture that women excel at, that, you know, it's not just because they're women, but also because of you know, many other factors that to me it just feels like a completely unnatural situation. And so Iasa is so and I am so personally excited about this because, you know, I've worked with Chris for years. I've gotten to work with Wendy for years, and I just kind of, you know, and sometimes I just sit in awe and go, well, okay, you guys are just the masters. Chris was one of the key contributors to the latest body of knowledge from Iasa, etc. So anyway, that was my personal, you know, that's my personal excitement about this. That's why I get excited. Also, Isa's really here, and I think WIA is really here as one of the first opportunities for architects to start getting involved in societal activities, right? Sustainability, diversity in architecture, women in architecture, legislative activities related to spend. You know, there's some really big things coming down the pipe as the society transforms to a truly digitally driven environment. And we're going to need all the experts we can get, male and female, right? So anyway, so that was my thing. Now, what I wanted to do with the panel was go around and do basically the same thing, maybe not take as long as I did, or take longer, please, you know, whichever. Geeta, I wanted to ask you to introduce yourself as one of the leaders, as well as maybe share a challenging experience that you've had as a part of, you know, as a part of being a woman in architecture.
So thank you for doing that. So I'm Geeta Pine. I'm the chief architect for enterprise architecture at Intuit, which is basically a fintech company. We are the makers of software for consumer and small businesses to power prosperity around the world. My challenging experience, I would say, like every day pretty much starts with, like, you know, something or the other that's challenging, because I think by virtue of doing an architecture role, and especially as an enterprise architect, you are changing, you know, challenging the status quo, you are changing the mindset, you are trying, you know, thinking big, you are always moving mountains, right? I would give an example just more recently, like, you know, I joined Intuit during the pandemic. So first of all, when you are joining a company during pandemic, is already hard, especially in the role of architecture, and more importantly, enterprise architecture, already a very, very abstract, right? So that was one way hard. I have a lot of technical muscles, but first of all, who you are an outsider coming in. I don't have credentials for fintech, like, you know, I have lots of other experiences across multiple high tech. So every step, even at this age and with all my credentials, I had to just getting a seat at the table has been hard. And then fast forward, we are actually transforming the company as a, like, to becoming a platform company. You are becoming like totally, we want to drive everything through a capability lens. So capability-based plan to capability-based execution. But guess what? Everybody loves the, you know, sound of it, but nobody wants to change. Oh, does that mean you are going to change how I do my roadmaps? Oh, really? Does this really affect me, or is this only for the executives, right? So every day trying to figure it out. So there is like multiple types of stakeholders, as you would imagine, from CTO to CEO to the CFO, to all the way up to it, you know, product managers, to the PD leaders, to the engineers. They have today like 12 different tools. I'm just probably minimizing the number of our tools. Zillion of hours spending on this, because we don't have, like, we have fragmentation, then process. So my challenge is every day figuring out whose shoes I'm wearing today, like, who, you know, am I a PM today, which hat I'm wearing, so that I can empathize, I can understand their pains, and then translate in a language that they can relate to, that I'm actually solving for them, and I'm not making it burden for them, right? So long and short of it, I think we are making incremental progress. Some days I feel like I'm like 10 steps back. Sometimes, oh my God, this is a great day. Is this what you wanted to see? So I would say the challenges are, you know, technology is the least of the concern. Honestly, what I have seen. So when we think about architecture challenges as a capability, I think we all think about process, people, technology. I think people are the most hardest thing to change, like we all probably know, but my lessons learned every day is how do I learn people, what they're, you know, where they're coming from, what their concerns are. And it's not because they want to be difficult, but really understanding that has been the biggest, you know, and then how do I make it relevant and helpful for them?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, so thank you for that. Grant, I'd like to, Grant, I'm going to turn this blur thing back off because I now look like a 1920s movie.
Kind of nice. 1920s.
Yeah, Actually, it's probably better that I be blurred, right? You know.
I thought it was my connection. Awesome.
So Grant, I'd like to ask your why for WIA, right? You know, why are you supportive? Why are you a part of the leadership? And then as the facilitator, as the leader of CAF, how do you see this, coming together? What's your vision for women and the CAF and and that kind of thing? But of course, the number one thing is your why for being, for WIA to exist.
Absolutely. So when I first heard this idea, the why was, I mean, of course this needs to exist. Of course we have to support this. Like, the idea that something like this could happen and I wouldn't support it is just crazy to me. That we have, as you saw in the opening statement, 10% of women in this profession. There is so much untapped talent. And I have seen time and time again in my career, women excel in this career track if we just invest in them, if we just get them interested in it, and if we just make sure that we create an environment where their voices can be successful. So this is a forum for us to create focus on that. And just like every other area that women have broken into and advanced and have found their appropriate, equal number or more or less, but in that mix, number of seats at the table, clearly there aren't enough here. You need to have men in the group because that's 90% of the audience. If there aren't men in here trying to help make a difference, then the distance is so much further. But what this group can help us do as male members is understand what's important for the success of women in this space, so we can create the environments to nurture that and to make sure we make an investment there as a part of what we do. And to connect it to the Chief Architect Forum, we're fortunate enough to be a little bit above those numbers in representation in the Chief Architect Forum, but it's a journey to continue that. And I think it's a great way for us to cross-pollinate and bring more sponsors, men and women, into the WIA effort, create visibility, awareness, and chief architects have the opportunity, leading architecture organizations, to really drive change. So when we bring WIA into the Chief Architect Forum, we're opening up 102 chief architecture practices to the types of insights needed to drive change. So there's an incredibly important partnership here. And I think it's important that we also lean in and make the membership of support for this group, all of us, so that we can have more of us represented in this important profession.
That's wonderful, Grant. Thank you for that. I think that's an amazing vision, and a wonderful point is that none of us would have been architects if someone didn't believe that we could be an architect. And I think that the chief architects have that opportunity to learn and to demonstrate that exactly what you said, the very unique advantages that women can bring to this. Linda, I'm gonna ask you to go next and give us tell us a little bit about why WIA for you, and then talk a little bit about your commitment for the advocacy and the commitment to the development of the programs.
Sure, I'm happy to. So the culmination of Grant's comments and yours, and we've all had leaders that, hopefully, I think we've all had leaders that have helped us to get to the point in our career where we can actually have these conversations and do for others now. And those are, I want to acknowledge all of that without restating it. So I'm Linda Finley. I am currently the chief architect for Cargill, the global positioning, overseeing all of Cargill architecture. And in my career, though, and happily a part of the Chief Architect Forum, also part of the founding panel for WIA, long time involvement with Iasa, also the founder of the Twin Cities Business Architecture Forum since 2010. That's I think this is still the largest running community of practice for business architects in the world. Board member with Wendy and the Business Architecture Guild, author of the BizBach, and then as a public and private sector CIO through my career and early architect back in the IBM Gold days, when a chief architect had confidence in me to say, I think that you have a good mind for this, which is basically where it starts. So I've been in this game a real long time, and I've always been an architect, I think, as a thinker and at heart, even in those CIO roles and in the IT delivery executive roles and things like that. And I've also always been a proponent of bringing people in and mentoring and coaching. And through the communities that I've created and through the involvement that I've had, I think it's the most important thing we can do as leaders once we hit a certain point, but also all the way along, bringing people with us, lifting everyone up as we go. I echo everything that's been said about how strangely low the numbers are of women involved in this field. Although I do remember back in the day, it was kind of normal. As I was listening to the conversation here, I was thinking, I remember when it was kind of normal and kind of an okay joke to say, if I went to architecture or technology conferences earlier in my career, and frankly, even now, I'd always say, well, at least there's never a line in the bathroom, because the fact is that there were never any women at these things. And so from that, but it can be intimidating and it can be difficult. And I will tell you now, as the chief architect for Cargill, I'm hiring my teams and so on, and looking across the globe. And there are certain layers and types of architects that may be more inclined to women engaging. But I'm still in a room with all men, typically, even at the principal layer. There's just a very few number of us that are there that are not men, or I guess that I'll leave it at that. The thing is it's strange. We're all focusing on diversity, equity, inclusion. We have commitments. We have major commitments to these concepts and this equity and this advancement of non-gender specific, right? We want to bring the best talent. And when I first was approached, Wendy and I were talking about WIA, I think that it was, I was like, yeah, why? Absolutely. Whatever we can do to acknowledge and bring this, and then after this, we fix all this and we get these numbers up, maybe we go tackle something else. I mean, who else do we need to be inclusive for and mentor and coach and bring along one focus area at a time? I couldn't be more in on this, and my natural alignment towards community building, and as I said, bringing people up and bringing and discovering and encouraging and allowing and helping talent to blossom and to come into the picture is exactly why I'm here. And we're all busy, and we're all struggling to find the time to do the things that we love. And this is definitely something that will qualify as a passion project, because it's good for all of us, and it's good for me, and it's good for our companies. And so I'm in, and I would welcome anyone to reach out to me at any time to talk about this topic for sure, and how to engage in WIA and how to be mentored and coached, or provide mentoring and coaching if you have the opportunity space to do that. So
wonderful. Thank you so much for those words, Linda. That was quite inspirational. And also it's amazing to see what I love seeing is just the amount of experience and leadership that we have already in in driving this is is an inspiration in and of itself. Now, I don't see Carrie. Carrie, are you on?
He did have a session, so he may just not be here yet. Yeah.
Is or isn't, but Chris, I think we've heard from you as to why why we have from you, but I actually wanted to ask you what you think really is one of the, maybe one of the greater barriers, or what are the barriers to women becoming architects? What
Yes.
what are some of the things keeping this from happening?
Well, yeah, I've been asked the question, why aren't there more women in architecture? And I find it a really hard question to answer, because why on earth wouldn't you want to do this job as a woman? To me, it seems like it's a really fun job. You get to solve problems, you get to talk to people. And I think particularly now with the sort of, it's not new, but, as more and more organizations are fully adopting Agile, the whole sort of maybe command and control style that used to work no longer works. It's all about working with teams to come up with solutions, helping facilitate decisions. You can't make all the decisions at the beginning because you just don't know enough about the problem or the domain or the technology. So you need to make sure that, you're introducing the concepts of, we're going to make the decisions at the right time. You've got to make lots of trade-offs. And these things should be playing to what are traditionally called women's strengths. So that doesn't, to me, seem like it should be a barrier to entry. When I've spoken to people I work with, or I talk to, who aren't in the architecture stream, but they're hugely capable technologists, but they've moved away, it's just like, oh, I didn't really think about it, or somebody's pushed them, said that, oh, well, your next step will be a project manager, of course, or a business analyst, of course, but, they're in the development discipline, and it's just never really occurred to them. So I think that's where we need to change, provide the role models and just make it a realistic career that women do think about and do want to pursue. So, yeah, I mean, it's one of the things that we should do as WIA, is to find out what are those barriers to entry. Maybe we ask the non-architects, why didn't you do architecture? And get that level of clarity. Then we can start to address the blockers and barriers, one by one.
Wonderful. Yeah, that all rang pretty true to me as well. Wendy, I've got a different question for you. You've done quite a number of types of roles, and obviously have really become a major leader in the business architecture community. But I know that you've done other things in the past. How did you find your sort of calling? How did you find your way into architecture? And sort of, when did you know, like, when did you have your aha moment as an architect?
Oh, I love it. My story is probably like many others, which is I had no idea about architecture. In fact, I, for a very long time, was going to be a veterinarian, so I'm actually a science person. But I had moved into business and was working in data warehousing and in business intelligence sort of back in that heyday, and ended up getting just a 3-month temp job in something that wasn't even quite called business architecture. But that 3-month temp job just led from one thing to another to bigger and bigger efforts and uses of architecture, to where I had then become an enterprise, architect of enterprise-wide transformation. I then, led my own architecture team, and then just really kept following the bliss and following where I thought the need was to do what I do today, which is, sharing these ideas with others and helping practitioners and organizations. So I love the question on when did I know about the calling? Boy, I think it was probably like a year into my accidental, 3-month temp job that I really knew that I just kept being compelled to the next step and the next step. And it was always interesting, and there was always something bigger. And I do want to echo one of the points that somebody brought earlier too. It is thanks to somebody who believed in me, put me in the role, who kept encouraging me, and that really gave me the space and worked with my style to be able to do that. So that's my journey of accidental architecture, and I'm glad I'm here.
So let's ask some open questions. Let's go. I think we've got a few minutes for open questions. We actually had a comment from Ben. Ben, who has been a major contributor to the BIL-T in the past, and he just said, kind of basically, I wish there was more done at an earlier stage. When do we need to get for influence on engaging women in technology and in architecture? When do we need to get that inspiration in there? What do you guys think that inspiration would be? Because as you called it, the bliss, I've always felt exactly the same way as, Chris, I think, said, why wouldn't you want to do this job? It's just, but what is it what is that message that we need to get to girls, and when do we need to get it to them, kind of thing? What do you think is that key message that's gonna attract them to this kind of role?
Were you asking Chris? Oh, sorry.
Well, that was an open question to the panel.
Okay. Well, what struck me as you were talking, Paul, is that architecture tends to be something that you don't. Clearly, in my opinion, it's a natural thinking style, and there's some people that are super suited to it, and some people that work harder to get into it. And just like a problem-solving, systems thinking mindset, there's some of us who have the gift and the curse of architecture are only contextual thinkers, and we can't think about anything without all the implications, and it can get a little bit big. But so the thing that I was thinking about as you were talking, how do we help? It has to be a rolled out view of the future, because a lot of times we don't get to be architects until we get some experience. I'm still open to a change of opinion. I'm always open. But I will say that this is a career, this is a role that I don't necessarily think you graduate from high school and are ready for. I think that this is, there's business acumen, there's depth of experience, there's, if you're into the business architecture space, especially, you're into business models, you're into, trends and industry insights and geopolitical constraints. And there's a lot of pieces here. And so it's difficult, because you want people to know that it's a path for them. But at the same time, I do have a hard time thinking about, an architect without some it's a hard thing, which is exactly probably why there aren't more why more women don't find it, or more other people don't find the path. So I think we need to be intentional about how we do that. I think we need to know at what points along the way it's introduced as an idea and a positive path and a career path for people.
Yeah, then I'll just add, yes, agree to all you said. At the same time, I think not telling the story of, because architecture again is very misunderstood, and the outcomes, as we know, relating the exact outcome from architecture directly is hard, right? So I think we also have that's why I think WIA and other avenues talk our stories, how we got there, right? And also I think what I do, in my current or previous companies, laying out that path, also talking about how this can give somebody a very influential leadership role without having to manage a lot of people, influence without authority. Because I have seen software engineers, they kind of drop in the whatever the family or what comes in the middle, and they think that, hey, I need to now become a technical program manager or something. I cannot stay in an architecture. I think that bridging and talking and helping them to see, hey, it doesn't mean that you have to be code all day long. Here are the different facets and what makes you a well-rounded architect. And you can be that single voice, actually. You can get shit done by doing the right thing, helping people to see the path.
You know, I like it when we get to the talk straight moments. Those are my favorite, right? There's a you know, I'm actually going to put there's a wonderful organization I put in the chat that just for everybody to look at. It's called the Student IT Architect Competition. It was started out of a Seattle group run by Shrikant Palkar. I wanted to mention it because I was at a number of the early competitions, and the first competition was won by a primarily group of female students who won this IT architecture competition, and it had a $10,000 grant award. I mean, it was, it's a big deal, and they work really hard, and they do it every year, and it's an amazing organization. So if you are a student and you are something, I am hoping to reach out to partner with them so that we can obviously promote the women in architecture there. But I wanted to end we've only got time for like one more question. So what is the biggest thing that in your minds, right, that we can do to encourage organizations to begin this process? What do you think the tactical side of encouraging our sponsored partner organizations? What do we need to do first, so to speak? We've got the community, and that's amazing. We're going to have events, and that's amazing. But what can we do to start talking to the organizations, or what do you think the organizations need to do, I should say, to make it practical? And we'll just open that up to anybody who wants to make a final statement, and then we'll turn it over to the next.
I think not necessarily easy, but quite a good first step would be to share the stories, share role models, because then we're going to have more people that we can engage and talk to, and find out what barriers and blockers they felt they had to overcome, and then we can start to understand how to address them in the wider landscape.
And I'll just add on awareness. Start the conversation. I think there's so many things we're not even aware of. Just awareness and hiring practices and where we source people from. Starting the conversation, normalize. And I also think change really happens one person at a time. So anything we do as individuals in our organizations, I think will have a really big effect. So start the conversation and just, create some awareness.
I think it's been said several times today, but we are all leaders, and we all have an opportunity to tap people with potential for this track. And I encourage all of you to think about, is there a woman leader that you know of that should consider this path? And it doesn't matter if it's your first day in architecture and you're working with subject matter experts and you can mentor them and teach them your work so they can start to step into the space, or you're the leader of architecture, the CIO, and you encourage them to consider the path. But we all can play a role in helping people consider this path and helping women consider this path and support their success. And that's my major call to action for everyone here, is to try to be a part of that change.
Here, I thought somebody was going to say, thumb screws for the executives. But anyway, thank you so much, everybody, for this wonderful kickoff call for WIA. Please come join the Mighty Network. Please come help us make this a reality. Please bring your ideas, and otherwise, I think we have to move on to the next session.